The sun was setting over Lekki Phase 1, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The pristine streets of the luxury estate gleamed under the fading light, lined with mansions that stood as monuments to Nigeria's wealthiest elite. Chief Adebayo Williams stepped out of his Mercedes G-Wagon, his custom-made Agbada flowing elegantly around him. The gold Rolex on his wrist caught the sunlight, flashing like a beacon of his success. He was on the phone, as usual, closing yet another multi-million-dollar deal. "Yes, finalize everything tomorrow," he said with the confidence of a man who had never known defeat. $20 million. "We're taking over the entire oil block. Those small companies can't compete with Williams' energy." His laughter echoed through the quiet street, arrogant and carefree. Chief Adebayo had built his empire through ruthlessness and ambition. He crushed competitors without mercy, fired employees without second thoughts, and stepped on anyone who stood in his way. To him, Lagos was a battlefield, and only the strongest survived. At 52 years old, he had everything: money, power, respect, and fear. But he was about to learn that none of it could protect him from what was coming. As he approached his gate, still laughing at his own joke, he didn't notice the black bus that had been following him. He didn't see the four masked men who jumped out with military precision. By the time he realized what was happening, it was too late. "Oga, follow us quietly," one of them shouted, pointing a gun at his chest. Chief Adebayo's face turned pale. For the first time in decades, he felt fear, real, paralyzing fear. "Do you know who I am?" he stammered, his voice cracking. "I am Chief Adebayo Williams. My security will." The butt of a gun crashed into his skull before he could finish. Pain exploded through his head, and the world went dark. The last thing he heard before losing consciousness was the screech of tires and the sound of his own designer shoes dragging across the concrete. The neighbors heard the commotion. They peeked through their curtains and saw the violence unfolding, but not a single person came out to help. This was Lagos. Getting involved in other people's problems could get you killed. So they watched in silence as one of their own was dragged away into the night. When Chief Adebayo regained consciousness, everything hurt. His head throbbed with pain, his arms were numb, and his mouth tasted like blood. He tried to move but realized he was tied tightly to a wooden chair. The ropes cut into his wrists and ankles, restricting his circulation. He opened his eyes slowly, adjusting to the darkness. He was in an abandoned warehouse. He could tell by the smell of rust, mold, and decay. Water dripped somewhere in the distance, creating an eerie echo. His expensive Agbada was torn and stained with dirt and blood. Where am I?" he groaned weakly. Heavy footsteps approached. 4 men emerged from the shadows, removing their masks one by one. The leader was a man called Scorpion, a name that matched his deadly reputation. He was in his mid-30s, with tribal marks on his cheeks and cold, emotionless eyes that had seen too much violence. He held a machete that glinted in the dim light. "Welcome to your new home, Chief," Scorpion said with a voice like gravel. "We know you get money. Your family go pay 50 million naira, or you know they go back." Chief Adebayo tried to summon the authority he used in boardrooms, the commanding presence that made grown men tremble. "You're making a terrible mistake," he said, trying to sound brave. "My people are connected. The police, the army, they'll find me. When they do, you'll wish you never." The slap came so fast he didn't see it. His head snapped to the side, and he tasted more blood in his mouth. "Your people?" Scorpion laughed wickedly. "You think we fear your people? We've done this business for years, Chief. Your police SEF they collect from us. They're on our payroll. Now shut up and call your wife, or I'll cut off your ear to send to her." They threw a phone at him. With trembling hands, Chief Adebayo dialed his wife's number. Back at the Williams mansion in Lekki, Mrs. Folake Williams had been crying for hours. When the phone finally rang, she grabbed it desperately. "Adebayo. Adebayo, are you okay? Please tell me you're okay." "Folake." His voice was barely a whisper, broken and afraid. They want 50 million naira. Please, do whatever they say. I'm scared. I'm so scared. Mrs. Folake's blood ran cold. She had never heard her husband sound like this. The man who commanded rooms full of executives, who negotiated with government officials, who feared nothing, that man was gone. In his place was someone terrified and vulnerable. Scorpion snatched the phone. Madam, you get 48 hours. If we no see that money, not only your husband's head we go return to you. And we no day play. The line went dead. Mrs. Folake collapsed on the marble floor, wailing. Their daughter, Tiniola, rushed to hold her mother as they both cried, not knowing if they would ever see their husband and father alive again. On the other side of Lagos, in the densely populated slum of Ajagunle, a different kind of struggle was unfolding. Emeka Okonkwo woke up in his small one-room apartment as the first rays of sunlight streamed through the cracks in the corrugated iron roof. He was 38 years old but looked older, his face marked by years of hardship and sleepless nights. His daughter, Chioma, was already awake. At 9 years old, she had learned to be independent. She was getting ready for school in her faded uniform, the one Emeka had washed by hand the night before because they couldn't afford a washing machine. Papa, good morning, she said with a smile that could light up the darkest room. Good morning, my princess, Emeka replied, forcing himself to smile despite his exhaustion. You done ready for school? Yes, Papa. But... She hesitated, looking down at her feet. Papa, my teacher said we need to pay for excursion. 5,000 naira. Emeka's heart sank. He opened his worn leather wallet and counted the bills inside, only 1,200 naira. That was all that remained from yesterday's work. He needed to buy food, pay for Chioma's transportation, and somehow find 5,000 naira for an excursion he couldn't afford. Don't worry, baby, he said, hiding his worry behind a gentle smile. Papa, go find the money. I promise. Chioma hugged him tightly. She was wise beyond her years and knew things were difficult, but she trusted her father completely. Thank you, Papa. I love you. I love you too, my heart. More than anything in this world. After Chioma left for school, Emeka sat on his bed and stared at the framed photograph on the wall. It was a picture of his late wife, Ngozi, holding newborn Chioma. She was smiling, radiant with joy, completely unaware that she would die just hours after that photo was taken. Complications during childbirth had taken her away 3 years ago, leaving Emeka alone to raise their daughter in one of Lagos's toughest neighborhoods. Ngozi, he whispered to the photograph, I'm trying my best. This life is hard, but I promised you I would take care of our daughter. I won't let you down. He wiped away a tear, stood up, and prepared for another day of hustling. He was an Uber driver, navigating Lagos's chaotic streets from sunrise to sunset, battling traffic, difficult passengers, and a car that was constantly breaking down. But he had no choice. This was survival. Emeka drove through Lagos all day, picking up passengers from different worlds. In the morning, he drove a wealthy businessman from Victoria Island to a meeting in Ikoyi. The man complained about everything. The traffic, the heat, the condition of Emeka's car, while making phone calls about deals worth millions of naira. In the afternoon, he picked up a young woman from the University of Lagos who was going home to Surulere. She was kind and asked him about his day. When she found out he was a single father, she gave him an extra 500 naira tip and said, God bless you, sir. Keep fighting. Those small moments of kindness kept him going. By evening, he had driven from Ikeja to Aja, from Yaba to Lekki. His phone kept pinging with ride requests, but the earnings were painfully small. After 12 hours of work, he had only made 8,000 naira. After buying food and setting aside money for Chioma's school transport, he would have almost nothing left. Meanwhile, in the abandoned warehouse, Chief Adebayo was experiencing a hell he never imagined possible. He hadn't eaten in 24 hours. His face was swollen from beatings, and his body ached from being tied to the chair for so long. His legs had gone numb from lack of circulation. When Scorpion finally brought him food, a small plate of rice and watery stew, Chief Adebayo ate like an animal, too hungry to care about dignity. "Your wife never send the money," Scorpion said, watching him eat. "She dey play games?" "Please," Chief Adebayo begged between mouthfuls, "I'm in so much pain. The rope is too tight. I can't feel my legs anymore. Please loosen it just a little." Scorpion loosened the rope slightly, more out of practicality than mercy. A dead hostage was worthless. "I'm a businessman," Chief Adebayo said desperately. "I can pay you double, triple the ransom. Just let me go. I have connections. I can help you lead this life of crime. I can give you legitimate jobs, opportunities." Scorpion laughed bitterly. "You rich people dey funny. When we poor, when we dey suffer for street, you no see us. You no help anybody. But now way you need help, now way you dey tied to chair, suddenly you dey form saint. You want give us jobs?" He spat on the ground. "Eat your food and shut up." Tears rolled down Chief Adebayo's cheeks. "Please. I have children. A wife. They need me. I know I've made mistakes, but..." "You get children?" Scorpion interrupted angrily. "I also get children. You think say not only you get family? We all day hustle for this Lagos. The difference be say you day hustle with AC inside office, we day hustle with gun for street. Nobody is helping us, so we help ourselves." On the evening of the second day, Emeka received a ride request from a hotel in Outer Marina. When he arrived, a young man entered his car, nervous, sweating, constantly looking over his shoulder. Emeka immediately sensed something was wrong. "Oga, take me to a papa." "Fast, fast," the man said urgently. "Okay, sir," Emeka replied, watching him through the rearview mirror. As they drove through evening traffic, the passenger kept receiving phone calls and speaking in code. "The package is secure, tomorrow we collect, everything is going according to plan." Emeka's instincts as a Lagos driver had been sharpened by years of navigating the city's dangers. He knew when something wasn't right. At a traffic light, the passenger's phone screen lit up with a news notification. Emeka glanced at it and his heart stopped. The headline read, "Prominent CEO Chief Adebayo Williams kidnapped in Lekki, family offers 50 million naira ransom." Emeka's mind raced. This man in his car, speaking in code about packages and collections, he was one of the kidnappers. Emeka's hands trembled on the steering wheel, but he forced himself to remain calm. If the kidnapper suspected anything, Emeka's life would be in danger. When they arrived at a quiet street in Apapa, the passenger paid and hurried toward an abandoned warehouse. Emeka pretended to drive away but parked around the corner, his heart pounding in his chest. He watched as the man entered the warehouse and disappeared inside. Every logical part of Emeka's brain told him to leave. This wasn't his problem. He had a daughter to take care of. Getting involved with kidnappers was suicide. But another part of him, the part that remembered his wife's words, wouldn't let him drive away. Ngozi had always told him, "Emeka, always do the right thing, even when it's hard. That's what makes us human." He pulled out his phone and called the police emergency number. "Hello? What's your emergency?" a bored voice answered. "I found where kidnappers dey keep one man," Emeka said urgently. "The CEO way dem kidnapped for Lekki. Chief Adebayo Williams." "How you take know?" the officer asked suspiciously. "You be part of the kidnappers?" "No. I'm just an Uber driver. I picked up one of them and I followed." "Oga, don't waste my time. If you get proof, bring him come station. We no dey respond to random calls." The line went dead. Emeka stared at his phone in frustration. The police wouldn't help. He was on his own. Emeka sat in his car for almost an hour, wrestling with his conscience. Through a broken window of the warehouse, he could see shadows moving inside. He could hear voices, though he couldn't make out the words. He thought about Chioma. What would happen to her if he got killed trying to be a hero? She had already lost her mother. Losing him too would destroy her. The smart thing, the safe thing, was to drive away and forget everything he had seen. But then he imagined himself in that warehouse, tied to a chair, terrified and alone. He imagined crying out for help while people walked past, too afraid or too indifferent to get involved. He imagined Chioma growing up and learning that her father had the chance to save someone's life but chose to do nothing. Could he live with that? Could he look at Ngozi's photograph and tell her he had abandoned his principles because of fear? No, he whispered to himself. I can't. He drove to a nearby mechanic shop owned by his friend Tund, a stocky man in his early 40s who had known Emeka for years. Tund, I need your help, Emeka said urgently. Big help. What'n happen? You look like you see ghost. I found where kidnappers dey keep that CEO everybody dey talk about. We fit save am, but we need to be smart. Tund's eyes widened in shock. Emeka, you don craze? Kidnappers get guns. Automatic weapons. If dem catch you, na instant death. Think about Chioma. I am thinking about Chioma. Emeka shot back. I'm thinking about the kind of man I want her to remember. My wife always talked about helping others, about standing up when others stay silent. This is my chance to honor her memory. This is my chance to teach my daughter that courage matters. Tund stared at his friend and saw something burning in his eyes, something that couldn't be extinguished by logic or fear. Okay, Tund sighed heavily. What'n't be the plan? And this plan better be smart, because I know one die tonight. They arrived at the warehouse at 4 o'clock in the morning, when the kidnappers would be least alert. The sky was still dark, and the streets of Apapa were empty. Tund parked his car nearby with the engine running, their escape vehicle. Emeka's heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. This was the most dangerous thing he had ever done. One mistake, one wrong move, and he would leave Chioma an orphan. He crept toward the warehouse, staying low and moving silently. The kidnappers had a generator providing electricity to the building. Emeka found it behind the warehouse and carefully cut the fuel line. Within minutes, the generator sputtered and died. The lights inside the warehouse went out. What'n happen? Scorpion's voice boomed from inside. Check the generator. Somebody check the generator now. Two kidnappers rushed outside, cursing and fumbling with flashlights. Tund, wearing a mask, created a diversion by throwing a large stone at the opposite side of the warehouse, making a loud crash. Who be that? Check that side, one kidnapper shouted, and they ran toward the noise. This was Emeka's moment. He slipped into the dark warehouse, his eyes adjusting to the blackness. He found Chief Adebayo tied to a chair in the corner, barely conscious. The powerful CEO looked broken, face swollen, body slumped, spirit crushed. Oga, I dey here to save you, Emeka whispered urgently. Stay quiet. Chief Adebayo lifted his head weakly. Who are you? No time for questions. We must move now. Emeka pulled out a knife and cut through the ropes. Chief Adebayo tried to stand but immediately collapsed. His legs, deprived of circulation for 2 days, couldn't support his weight. He fell to the ground, crying out in pain. I can't walk. Chief Adebayo sobbed. My legs are dead. They're completely numb. Please don't leave me here. Don't hurt me, I can't walk. I can't walk. For a brief moment, Emeka hesitated. How could he carry a full-grown man while running from armed kidnappers? It was impossible. He could save himself, but he couldn't save them both. Then he looked at Chief Adebayo's face, not the face of a powerful CEO, but the face of a terrified father who just wanted to see his family again. And Emeka made his choice. I no go leave you, he said firmly. Hold tight. With strength he didn't know he possessed, Emeka lifted Chief Adebayo onto his back. The CEO wrapped his arms around Emeka's neck, and they began moving through the warehouse. Outside, the kidnappers realized something was wrong. Scorpion's eyes widened in fury. Someone day inside. They're freeing the hostage. Kill them. Kill them now. Gunshots rang out in the night. Bullets slammed into the warehouse walls, sending debris flying. Emeka ran as fast as he could with Chief Adebayo on his back, ducking and weaving through the darkness. Move. Move. Move, he screamed, his lungs burning. Tun drove up at the perfect moment. Emeka practically threw Chief Adebayo into the back seat and jumped in after him. Tun floored the accelerator, and the car shot forward just as the kidnappers emerged from the warehouse, firing their weapons into the air. Come back. We go find you. We go kill you. Scorpion screamed, but they were already gone, disappearing into the Lagos night. In the back seat, Chief Adebayo was crying, not from pain, but from overwhelming emotion. You saved me, he whispered. You actually saved me. Emeka, breathing heavily, looked at the man he had just rescued. That's what human beings supposed to do for each other. 2 weeks had passed since the rescue. Chief Adebayo had recovered in a private hospital in Victoria Island, receiving the best medical care money could buy. His legs had regained feeling, and though he needed crutches, the doctors said he would walk normally again soon. But the physical healing was nothing compared to the transformation happening inside him. Emeka visited the Williams mansion for the first time since the rescue. As his old, battered car pulled up to the gate of the sprawling estate, he felt completely out of place. The security guard looked at him suspiciously until Chief Adebayo himself came to the gate on his crutches. Let him in. This man is family, Chief Adebayo declared. Inside the mansion, Emeka felt like he had entered a different world. The marble floors, the chandeliers, the expensive furniture, it was more luxury than he had seen in his entire life. But the Williams family treated him like royalty. Mrs. Folake hugged him with tears streaming down her face. Thank you, she kept saying. Thank you for bringing my husband back to me. We can never repay you. Chief Adebayo handed Emeka an envelope. This is 10 million naira. Please accept it. Emeka's hands trembled as he held the envelope. 10 million naira. It was more money than he had earned in his entire life. With this, he could give Chioma everything she needed. He could fix his car, move to a better neighborhood, start a real business. Sir, this is too much, he said, though his voice cracked with emotion. I no do for money. I did it because it was right. I know, Chief Adebayo said, his own eyes wet with tears. That's exactly why you deserve it. But that's not all I want to give you. He sat down across from Emeka, his face serious and contemplative. When I was tied to that chair, begging for my life, I realized something. I realized that I had spent my entire life building an empire of money and power, but I had built nothing of real value. I had crushed people to get ahead. I had ignored suffering. I had believed that success meant dominating others. But when those kidnappers pointed a gun at my head, none of my wealth mattered. None of my connections saved me. I was just a man, a scared, helpless man who couldn't even walk. He paused, collecting his emotions. And you? A man who drives Uber in Ajagunal, a man I probably would have dismissed as irrelevant if I passed you on the street. You risked your life to save mine. You showed me what real wealth looks like. It's not in bank accounts. It's in character. In compassion. In courage. You are richer than I have ever been. Emeka didn't know what to say. He had never heard anyone speak to him this way. I've decided to change my life, Chief Adebayo continued. I'm starting a foundation to help single parents like you, people who are struggling but never give up. We'll provide scholarships for children, business grants, housing support. And I want you to help me run it. I need someone who understands what it means to struggle, what it means to sacrifice everything for your child. Will you help me? Emeka couldn't hold back his tears anymore. Yes, sir. I will help you. Just then, Tiniola entered the room, holding Chioma's hand. The little girl was wearing a brand new school uniform, and her face lit up when she saw her father. Papa. Chioma. What are you doing here? Tiniola smiled warmly. We went to Ajagunal and brought her here. We've enrolled her in one of the best schools in Lagos, Corona School. Full scholarship, everything covered. It's the least we can do. Emeka collapsed into a chair, overwhelmed. He pulled Chioma into his arms and held her tight, crying openly. Your mother would be so proud, he whispered. So proud. 6 months passed, and Lagos continued its relentless hustle. But for two families, everything had changed. Emeka used part of his reward money to start a transportation company, hiring other struggling single parents as drivers and giving them fair wages. He moved to a small but decent apartment in Surulere, closer to Chioma's new school. Every morning, he woke up grateful, staring at Ngozi's photograph and telling her about how their daughter was thriving. Chioma excelled in her new school. She made friends, joined the debate club, and her teachers said she had incredible potential. The little girl who once wore faded uniforms and worried about excursion fees now had opportunities her father had only dreamed of. Chief Adebayo fully recovered and returned to work, but he was a different man. He restructured Williams Energy to be more ethical, paying fair wages and treating employees with dignity. The Second Chance Foundation, which he and Emeka ran together, had already helped over 200 families escape poverty. He reconciled with people he had wronged in business, returning money he had stolen and apologizing for his ruthlessness. Some forgave him. Others didn't. But he accepted their judgment and continued trying to make amends. One evening, both families gathered at the Williams mansion for dinner. They ate together, laughed together, and shared stories. Chief Adebayo's son and daughter played with Chioma in the garden. Mrs. Folake and Emeka discussed foundation projects. It was a scene that would have been impossible just months ago, the wealthy CEO and the poor Uber driver, now as close as brothers. As the sun set over Lagos, Chief Adebayo stood and raised a glass of wine. I want to make a toast, he announced. Everyone fell silent. To Emeka Okonkwo, the man who taught me that true power is not in dominating others, but in lifting them up. You didn't just save my life that night in the warehouse. You saved my soul. I was a prisoner long before those kidnappers tied me to that chair. I was a prisoner of my own greed, my own pride, my own selfishness. You set me free. Emeka stood, raising his own glass. And you, Chief, taught me that people can change. That it's never too late to become who you're meant to be. That mercy and second chances are the greatest gifts we can give each other. They embraced, and everyone applauded. In that moment, in that beautiful mansion in Lekki, two men from completely different worlds had become family. Lagos continued to hustle. The traffic still gridlocked the roads. The generators still roared through power outages. The rich still lived in Lekki while the poor struggled in Ajagunal. The fundamental inequalities of the city remained. But scattered throughout Lagos were people whose lives had been touched by what happened that night. The mechanics who helped with the rescue told the story to everyone who would listen. The neighbors who witnessed the kidnapping felt shame for their silence and vowed to be braver. The police officers who failed to respond faced internal investigations that led to systemic reforms. And in schools, churches, and community centers across the city, people spoke about the single father who risked everything for a stranger, and the CEO who learned humility from his own helplessness. The story became legend, retold and embellished, until it was hard to separate fact from fiction. But the core truth remained: on one night in Lagos, an ordinary man did something extraordinary, and in doing so, he proved that even in the most ruthless city, compassion still had power. Chioma grew up hearing the story of how her father became a hero. She would eventually attend university, study social work, and dedicate her life to helping others, carrying forward the legacy of courage her father had shown. And sometimes, late at night, Emeka would stand on his balcony in Surulere, looking out over the glittering lights of Lagos, and he would whisper to the stars, "I kept my promise, Ngozi. I took care of our daughter. And I tried to make you proud." Somewhere in that vast city, millions of people were hustling, struggling, fighting for survival. Each had their own story, their own pain, their own dreams. And maybe, just maybe, some of them would remember that in the darkest moments, ordinary people could become extraordinary. This was Lagos. This was Nigeria. This was humanity at its most broken and most beautiful.